What's up, humans? Welcome to another episode of Humans of the Multiverse.
Our goal is to bring people together by featuring the stories of our friends from all over the globe.
We want to share our interests with the world, and that's why we started this show.
So if you enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends. Press the like button and subscribe to our channel.
And if you have a compelling story to tell, send us an email.
Thanks for watching. Michael Collins is the founder of Wandering Wolf Productions, a YouTube channel where he explores and documents ancient sites and natural wonders worldwide. He is a military veteran, filmmaker, and explorer who produces travel content focusing on archaeological mysteries and cultural discoveries. Collins collaborates with his cousin Austin and has been recognized by figures like Graham Hancock for his investigative work. Please enjoy our interview.
And there's a reason why the world average for excavation around the world at sites is around 20%. You know, having some archaeologist on site attached to the site to lend it credibility. But what really happens is these sites get sold off to management companies that specialize in making these sites profitable for tourism. And so if any site is monetized, is making money, is charging entrance fees and things like that, there's reconstruction stuff going on there, and that, you know, a lot of times people don't even realize you're going to places and you're looking at stuff that you think, you know, I'm watching people have emotional reactions to things that they think are ancient works of art, and I know that they're a concrete plaster reconstruction. It's been really cool for me to have a complete fundamental shift in perspective in terms of how I view the world by doing all this. But I mean, it maybe sounds cliche, but there's only one you, and you have to be you. You have to follow what's in you, what you're being told to do. I like compromise when it comes to being creative with people and collaborating and doing things, but there's one thing that you should never compromise. And if there's a vision or a passion or something in your heart that's, you're just, you know, that thing that you're like, where is this coming from? Like, it's just in me that I want to do this thing.
Yeah.
You can't compromise on that.
Yeah.
And then something shifted, and I started valuing people. And then when I started putting my energy into relationships instead of outcome, which was another thing that I had to change in me, because just for the simple fact of coming from a sales background for almost 12 years or so, you know, the focus was always the outcome.
Yeah.
And when I stopped focusing on the outcome and started focusing on the relationships with people, and it just opened up a whole nother world of amazing stuff to me about connecting with people and the value that everybody inherently has within them, how much each person out there has to give in some way.
Or something, it would probably be Whataburger that could nurture me back.
This is my treat to myself today, and I'm hopped up on Dayquil, so.
Nice.
It's got all the nutrients that you need. It's just solid nutriments and nutrition. It's wholesome. A cold beverage for love Whataburger. I have a Whataburger hat and shirt. If I had known, I would have worn that.
You know, and I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like I have to like defend myself too a little bit, because I never eat fast food. I never eat. I'm like really good on my diet. I hit the gym every day, and I just, after being stuck inside for 2 weeks, I was like, I'm getting Whataburger. This is like,
you deserve it. You probably needed the calories too. You probably weren't eating that much.
Oh
while you were
yeah.
sick.
I think I ate it and immediately passed out with like the wrapper next to my head.
That's awesome. Yeah, and let's start with the most recent thing. Is it Michael or Mike, or what do you prefer?
Whatever. Yeah, most everybody just calls me Mike. That's fine.
The Wandering Wolf. Welcome to the Multiverse. We're really glad you're on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to just basically start with Sedona, man. Like, I wish we could have went. We planned on going to Contact in the Desert this year, as well as Cosmic Summit. And then all of a sudden the Sedona thing kind of came out of nowhere. and you're friends with, like, you know, the OG of all this stuff, Mr. Graham Hancock. So how the hell was that?
It was awesome. I felt like it couldn't have gone better. We had such an amazing time. You know, I got to share the stage with Jimmy and Jimmy Corsetti from Bright Insight and Graham. A little thing where we talked about our recent trip. Jimmy and I recently traveled to Turkey.
Correct.
And stirred up a whole bunch of
hornet's nest.
Yeah, we kind of kicked the hornet's nest. And so, you know, I was talking to Graham while we were over there in Turkey, and he gave us the invite, said that we should come to the conference and talk. And so so we did, and it was great. I got to meet a lot of wonderful people, and it was an absolute blast to be able to do that and get up on stage there in front of everybody. Yeah, real treat.
Had you been to Sedona before?
Oh yeah, I've been to Sedona. And it was weird, you know, I got there, it was super cold. I'm from Texas, it's hot. It was already hot. I think I left here, it was like almost 100 degrees. I get to Sedona, it's like 40, and I drove through like a blizzard basically from Phoenix to Sedona. Wow. It was crazy. And then so it's just freezing, and then like the next day it was like, it's weird out in Sedona because it's like it can be cool out, but as soon as if you're out in the sun, you'll get burnt and it's dry. So it's like you can get sunburnt and all the stuff from like a summer while you're still wearing like a jacket or something, you know. It's like it was weird. And then I think that whole weekend kind of kicked my butt because I've been sick since then, since the conference. But
must have been because the climate fluctuations plus all the people and the stress, and that must have done it.
Yeah, got me.
Yep. I've experienced that before, where like shortly after a sunburn, you're also a little under the weather because it's like, it just beats you down in some way.
Yeah, but it's super frustrating. It's even doubly frustrating when you work from home. And, you know, I have a bunch of projects and different things I'm working on and not being able to do them, and they're right in the other room, you know? Right. And so it's been a frustrating week and a half or so or more. But then I had to get it. Today was the last straw. And so I got out of the house and I got the
Whataburger. Shout out Whataburger. Maybe we get a Whataburger sponsor out of this. Whataburger.
Just like you like it.
Yeah. Right. The anti-sick fast food, right?
I think I needed salt.
Oh, you definitely did. Being dehydrated when you're sick and stuff.
Yeah, which I got plenty of in that meal, in that combo meal. So.
Perfect. Had you done the whole up on stage conference thing before?
No.
And then all of a sudden you're up there with Jimmy and Graham.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. My first go at it, I'm up on stage with Graham and Jimmy. But, you know, Graham and Jimmy are such good friends. It was like just hanging out with a couple buddies up there. So I can't think of a better first go at doing a conference, being on stage than that. And it felt, of course, I was nervous before going up. And then when I got up there, I just felt completely relaxed. And it went so well because we just have a good rapport, all three of us. And so we were able to kind of throw things back and forth. And I couldn't have been more prepared for the topic after making my last two videos and having traveled through Turkey, and then just being asked about all of that. So I'd already spent months and months digging into all this. So it went really well.
Did you have a huge adrenaline dump afterwards?
I did. It kind of carried over because everybody wants to talk to you after you speak. Yeah. So I spent another several hours connecting with people and things like that. And then you know, we were talking briefly before we got on, but I'm a bit introverted. So like I can be extroverted, but it's like my battery just drains noticeably, right? It's like, you know, it's like watching your fuel gauge drop. And And so, yeah, I went back to the hotel room and I passed out for like, I don't know, an hour or two. And then I went back and went at it again for another hour or two. And then I called it, I called it quits.
Hey,
I
that's
totally
cool.
get it.
That's great. It's exhilarating, I'm sure, being on a stage like that in front of so many people. But certainly, you're no stranger to the camera. You've been producing on YouTube for quite some time. So, in a sense, you were practicing. You were working up towards that a lot.
Yeah, and there's a noticeable difference in, when I first started, I was nervous even in front of the camera, and there was this feeling of needing to always get it right, redoing takes and stuff. Dude, I don't care about any of that shit anymore. It's just, I just talk to the camera now, and it's so practice is important in terms of like, getting comfortable with certain things. And I'm sure that this probably kind of rolls over into that a bit. Yeah.
You only get one take on the stage, and if you want to get another take next year, it better be a good take the first year, right?
Yeah, no pressure, right?
Is that a regular one that Graham does in Sedona every year, or that's the first I'd heard of that?
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like it came out of nowhere. It was kind
Did.
of quick.
Probably hasn't been. I don't think it's a every annual thing.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it being a regular thing, and so I think it was more of a thing to kind of address a lot of the. It's been a pretty volatile year for Graham over the last year in terms
Yeah.
of not his content or his work, but the attacks that he's been getting.
Correct.
Same old attacks, just keep
Yeah.
showing up year after year, wearing new clothes, new faces, new channels with newer subscribers, and new commenters. But it's the same attacks from 20, 30 years ago that are just straw manning the same people over and over again. Makes you wonder. Anyhow, sorry to soapbox.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't. One of the things that I've taken from getting, developing a close friendship with, people like Graham or Jimmy is realizing the immense amount of pressure that they're under,
Right.
In the social sphere and in the public eye on a daily basis, and the toll that can take on an individual. I'm getting a taste of that. Just a tiny taste of that, and it's not fun. And these guys have such massive platforms that it's personal, it's direct, it's intentional, it's meant to be hurtful, and it's constant. And to wake up every day, and if you're a content creator, you're going to wake up every day and you're going to see negativity on your posts or videos. If you're choosing to create something and share it with the world, somebody's going to be a dick and say something, right? But this is a whole other level of public awareness in terms of personality, of you being a personality. And so sometimes people, I can't, seeing that secondhand towards my friends has given me kind of a look behind the scenes of what these gentlemen deal with on a daily basis, and it can be a lot. And so, hats off to them for maintaining their character as much as one reasonably can.
Sure.
Amongst the variety, especially, when you think about how long this has been going on with Graham, the entirety of his career. And so I think it was a space for him to be able to kind of share some of that and connect with his audience and express some of the that it's not just him, but it's anybody that, including archaeologists and people within the field, that anybody that steps out of line is going to get this in terms of thought, findings, proposed ideas. So, I think that, this was a kind of a space for Graham to kind of highlight some of that in a safe space with people who support him, kind of, get the picture of what he has had to endure for what like 40 years.
Literally 40 years, yeah.
So
Yeah, literally 40 years. And it's a sacrifice, the stress, and he's like kind of he tried to get away from it a couple of times, but he keeps like getting drawn back into it with new discoveries and new things going on. And he doesn't have to do this anymore, which is
right.
one of the things I would say is like totally hats off to him. I would agree. Jimmy, he's kind of been an inspiration for me. I've been following his channel since before he got into that whole Lost Ancient Civ thing. And so,
I think when you surround yourself with good people, they remind you of who you are.
mm-hmm.
And there was quite a period of time where, yeah, I did feel that way, and I felt a drive to get to certain places, do certain things, prove myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a conversation maybe a year ago that Jimmy and I were having, and he was like, he's like, dude, there's nobody else in the world that's more qualified and has been to more sites than you. They just don't
Mm-hmm.
know it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And when they find out that everything that they're watching that's new content all over these other platforms and TV shows is your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
people will know, but you should know that right now. And that felt really good to hear from him, and Graham has said similar things to me that have encouraged me along the way. And so when you have people in your life that are supporting you and telling you things like that, even if you're trying to be humble, eventually you can kind of take that in a little bit, right? You can allow it to form a little bit. Okay, like I have done this, and I'm trying to, toot my own horn all the time, but it's okay to maybe say, yeah, I can't think of anybody else that's been more places that is able to compare some of these things and offer insight. And then you start feeling like, yeah, I deserve to be here and just have a voice and say something. And I know that I've put in a lot of hard work to get here. And so, but I do still struggle with, yeah, I mean, it's a bit humbling to be on stage with Graham and Jimmy for sure. And, to be, being included in certain things with certain names. But it is, I think some of that stuff, as time goes by, it starts to feel more normal. But that's why it's also important to just keep a perspective of groundedness and sense of why you're doing things, what your goals are, what was the reason behind all of this, why you started, what your voice is, and staying true to that, because that's what got you here. Whether it took a long time or it happened overnight, why did you start doing this, and stay with that, because that, if you try to think that you're something that you're not, and you start going off script from what was in your heart to begin with that took you here and got you here, I think that's you can kind of you can find yourself in some spots where you're, I don't know, maybe eventually doing apology videos on
No apology videos. Dave and I's goal is not to have to ever do apology.
I don't think anybody wants to be doing those, right?
We don't want you to do one because of anything of, But speaking of what got you here, is that a good sort of pivot point to rewinding as far back as you would like to go on this journey to where we are today?
Yeah, yeah, we'll go. I'm not going to, take an hour to share, but I'll share you some details and stuff because I found that it has allowed me to connect with people in ways that I think has been helpful. I had a tough childhood. I was in an abusive home, and there was a lot of stuff going on there. I'm currently wrapping up a book I'll be releasing this year that goes over kind of my life story. And so for anybody that kind of any of this, what I'm about to share, resonates with any of that, that'll be coming out. So it was a tough childhood. There was abuse going on and stuff. The state took me away from my family when I was about 14. I spent that time until I was about 18 in and out of residential homes and facilities and all sorts of different places. And so I always struggled with being a part of the system, being a part of the school system, being a part of, I questioned things too much. And that was always a part of my character. But I spent a lot of time trying to go against that. I joined the military. I was trying to fit into society. I was doing things. Meanwhile, I definitely was living outside society with, when I was younger. I was very troubled and, getting a lot of fights and used drugs and stuff like that. I thought joining the military and really making a go at being a part of society was something college wasn't in the books for me. I did that. Being in the military was eye-opening for me. It was like looking behind the curtain and realizing that there's a whole system in place that operates as if, you're not a person, you're a number. I really got to see that. I joined the infantry, and the expectation was to just basically, you do what you're told. And I didn't have a very do what you're told attitude. If things don't make sense, I'd say that doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing it that way? Which didn't always, it depends. It depended on my leadership. Sometimes that was really valued.
Yes.
I found myself advancing far beyond my peers. But there were some situations where that was not valued at all. And I was in during 9/11, and I knew immediately. We all talked about it. I was going through a RIP program and, at the time, and they brought out a radio. We were doing a training as they brought out a radio, and they played the presidential address. We heard that, and then we went right back to training. It was by the time that I got out of the field and stuff and back, they had stopped playing some of the more intense footage. But the stuff that I did watch over the years, I was just like, I'd worked with debt charges and explosives and different stuff like that. There wasn't anything about 9/11 that added up to me. And it really, and then, I went through this whole experience. I was 2 weeks from getting out, and they were trying to force the anthrax vaccine on me. And I said no.
I had to take that anthrax vaccine.
Tremendous time. They were mailing anthrax around in envelopes and putting it on the news every day. Wonderful time.
Yeah, it felt so fear-based. And I said no. I refused it. And they made me stop going to formations and being around the other soldiers. I only had 2 weeks left, and I was getting out. And because your process when you go in is, I remember being at 30 AG, is like I was coming in, to get ready for boot camp. They put you at, where you get all your gear and everything first, and all your
shot.
Yeah, hallway. Nurse. I guess they were nurses on both sides.
They're medics. They're just regular medics, man. They're 68 whiskeys. Yeah.
It was just shot, step up, shot, step up, shot, both sides, step up. Probably like 6 times, 12 shots, and both shoulders. And I remember asking before I was doing that, because I was seeing everybody going on up there. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I remember getting a drill sergeant right in my face yelling at me, telling me not to be asking questions and stuff. And I did it, and I regretted it. It bothered me for a long time. And when that anthrax vaccine came around, I said, no way, man, not doing it. I was real young. You don't, you get pressured into certain stuff out of peer pressure. And I've always been good at standing against that, but the environment was it was a whole other level. By the time the anthrax vaccine came around, I was like, nah, not doing it. And then I think 9/11 led me on this, this is 25 years ago plus. And so, I think that put me on the path of I'd always questioned things. I'd grown up in the system, so I already didn't trust it, and I knew how messed up it was. had firsthand experience from childhood on about the system.
It gave you an early inside look that
Yeah.
you carried that insight immediately with you to the rest of your life.
100%. And I think the time in the military kicked that into another level.
Yes.
And then I went through a lot of really, really big ups and downs until I hit about my mid-30s. I developed a serious drug problem. I was miserable at my work. I couldn't go to work without being high. And I remember thinking, if I continue on doing this, I'm going to be dead. This isn't the life I want.
Right.
I was making a lot of money. I worked in sales, but I wasn't happy. And so none of that even mattered. And I logically just ran it out in my head was, so why don't you just quit and do whatever you want? Just do whatever you want. Because if I keep doing this, I'll be dead. Literally. I had a really bad heroin problem. And opiate addiction. And I knew if I continued on with this, I was going to be dead. So why not just quit and then just wake up every day and do whatever I want? Like, what?
Imagine that.
It just logically didn't matter anymore, right? Like, and so that's what I did, and I quit. Now that took a couple times, but the final time when I quit, because they kept offering me more money and to come back and work less, and it was crazy. And then, when I finally walked away in the process of getting sober, I was sober within 2 weeks of quitting.
So you didn't have to go to treatment or anything?
No, I had done that.
You just went
years before.
Okay.
But no, I didn't. At this point in my life, no, I just quit. And what changed my life was finding something that felt like a purpose and a passion. I took a trip. I was big into ancient sites. I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos. And I went to Peru with a girl I was dating at the time and went to Sacsayhuaman. That was the first site I ever visited.
Okay.
And I was blown away. And I touched those stones and I knew immediately, like, this is what I want to do. And I had been traveling occasionally with the army buddy of mine. Every once in a while we go do these hiking trips and he'd make videos with the GoPro. So I had thought to myself, like, I think I can do that. And that formed into, I continued to work on myself.
Yeah.
I continued to work on being sober and moving and figuring out what the root causes were for why I felt like I needed to be high all the time. I figured a lot of that out. And then I kind of found some goals, and that gave me direction. And once I had a reason to try, and it was something that I enjoyed, then it didn't really matter anymore if I was making a ton of money or if a lot of the more inconsequential things just faded away. And I realized that I couldn't put a price tag on the happiness and the gratitude that I was waking up with every day. And so all of a sudden I went from just completely depressed, drug addicted. And I mean, I say all of a sudden, this took years.
Sure.
But it felt all of a sudden when I look back on some of this. And then I realized, like, I had just woken up one day and I didn't know anything about film, working drones, or doing anything editing or any of this stuff. And I just didn't quit. I think some of the time that was it. I just didn't quit. And sometimes that's all you have to do is just not quit. You don't have to be good at anything. Sometimes you just have to not quit. And so I still don't make any money. I mean, not off YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it's paying my phone bill, but other outlets have presented themselves selling out content to TV shows or
Mm-hmm.
you know, doing the tours and things like that. And they've slowly developed. And yeah, I think there was a point where one day I just woke up and I was like, holy crap, I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is wild.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been 10 years. Yeah, 10 years.
15, yeah. Yeah, it
Started
sounds
with
like
that GoPro, and now you are into film, video, and all the above. You tackled that.
Yeah, and I think you know, I could have. There's a lot of different ways I could have done it, but I think I wanted to I feel like I had a right to talk about anything and everything that I wanted, and I think that for me that meant going to all of these places personally. And so, you know, I invested in me. I invested in future me. And so a lot of the money that I had spent years saving up went into building my experience. I look at it like you guys like RPGs?
yeah, oh yeah.
I look
Yeah.
at it like taking the skill points that I had built up over years, being my money or whatever, and then investing that into attributes that I wanted to grow for myself. And so
Gamified life, right?
yeah, and that's kind of what I did. I want to be able to talk about this, so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to spend weeks in Cambodia at Angkor Wat and these different places. I want to be able to talk about this, so I'm going to go to Egypt and do that in Egypt.
You're a real life Morrowind character.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Dave and I are kind of doing that as well. We haven't made it out of the continent yet, but it's very much why we're here speaking with you this evening.
Well, it's got a slower speed setting, life does. In the video game. You can't level up in one day.
For sure. Yeah, you can't just grind in one hallway walking back and forth
doing the same
thing over and over. I mean, it's kind of like that, but I mean, it's like with editing or whatever, right? We did do the same thing. We met at Cosmic Summit last year. We never knew each other before that. And then I'd been watching Jimmy, because I was in the military as well, and I was watching Jimmy doing his thing, and I'm thinking, I could do that, but for whatever reason, it wasn't the time. I was working a lot and whatever, but I always thought that it was something I wanted to do as well. I just wanted to comment too. I thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. I really look forward to the book. A lot of what you said resonates with me. Like I remember, like 2 weeks before we were going to Iraq, and I was one of the medics, and they were telling me, you know, everyone's going to be trying not to take this anthrax vaccine. You medics, this is our commander looking at me going, you medics better take this vaccine, because if you guys don't take it, they're not going to take it. And I remember thinking, I don't want to fucking take this anthrax vaccine, but I took it anyway. And I've been mad about that for 20 years. And so I totally get that. And so I similarly was it. Like when I joined the military, everyone was like, you're going to join the military. You don't like when anyone tells you what to do. But you kind of have to do it when you get there. And I wouldn't trade it, but it was, it's definitely what like led me to get my degrees in school and like buy my house and all that stuff. But I would trade that anthrax vaccine. I'd give that one back. I swear to God.
Yeah, I think one of the most the biggest piece of advice that I could ever give anybody that's thinking about joining the military, because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you don't get your information from recruiters. Get plugged in with a group of veterans in your city or something, and talk to guys that have served before joining, so that they can tell you what the blind spots are, because nobody will tell you exactly how it is like a veteran. Somebody who's been in and done it and then gotten out, because they'll tell you things like that. And they'll tell you, you know, the big thing that when I was in was it was all male. It was all men in infantry. There were no women. I don't know what it is like anymore, but I know they opened it up. But back then it was a very high level of you suck it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't go to
Mm-hmm.
sick call,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so there was tons of times where I was injured and I didn't go to sick call. And I
Mm-hmm.
wish I had, so that some of that was documented for later. Things that, you know, bothered me down the line, my back, my knees, stuff like that. You know, I think there's value in being tough and pushing through certain things and stuff like that. But there should be an environment where you're not punished if you decide to go to, you know.
For sure.
I mean, it's not like you're going to get anything besides Motrin, anyways, right?
Right. Trust me, I'm the medic. That's exactly what you're gonna get.
It's just all Motrin.
You're getting Motrin. I'm gonna tell you
Whatever.
to stay hydrated. You know, that's about it, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh whatever.
So I want to hear like the day, if you can go back to there, where you're like, all right, I'm starting a YouTube channel, and then you go. Like, I mean, like I'd be interested in that.
After Saxe Waman, you knew what you wanted to do and you knew how to do it.
I wish I could say it was that. I mean, yeah. Look, I've always been a big dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
I can, you know, a lot of my working process today is, I think from an outside perspective, would look like I'm not doing much, but it involves sometimes just sitting or being comfortable somewhere, and I guess for the lack of a better term, daydreaming, and then connecting all the pieces in my head and understanding what that looks like. So it's creating in my head the vision for what I want to do, and that's slowly manifested itself. I had the idea for everything, and then I also enjoy working with other people, and I think sometimes I look at how, you know, even if I'm not involved, how making connection between two people might really be amazing, because it could, you know, like y'all would get along, and if y'all worked on this, that'd be amazing. And hey, so and so meet so and so, whatever, you know. But I knew a dude and invited, you know, he had a gaming channel, and asked if he'd be interested in editing the videos if I started putting videos together and like filming stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he jumped on board, and you know, we worked together for a number of years, several years when we first started. But that, you know, I think that relationship taught me a lot more too, of really important stuff, because I also had a lot of issues in my life relationally because of my childhood, and, you know, the life that I'd had, and understanding boundaries and understanding certain things. And that relationship really tested those limits. And there was a real difference in creativity. I knew exactly at a certain point, I knew exactly what I was trying to do and exactly where I was going, wanted to go. And I felt like I was fighting creatively for that all the time. And so eventually, you know, I had to let that person go, and they're off doing great things, and I wish them the best. But as soon as I let them go and started putting out my own content, the channel blew up. It just took off from just sitting at 1,000 subscribers for a year or two, and then all of a sudden overnight, you know, in the last 2 years,
Yes.
went from 1,000 subscribers in the last 2 years to, I don't know where I'm at,
50 something, 60 something, yeah.
Yeah, 63 or something now. And so, and growing. So it's just once, you know, I mean, it maybe sounds cliche, but there's only one you, and you have to be you. You have to follow what's in you, what you're being told to do. I think if there's, I like compromise, especially I like compromise when it comes to being creative with people and collaborating and doing things. But there's one thing that you should never compromise. And if there's a vision or a passion or something in your heart that's, you're just, you know, that thing that you're like, where's this coming from? Like, it's just in me that I want to do this thing.
Yeah.
You can't compromise on that. And I was compromising on that. And when I stopped, I think I found my voice, and it started resonating with people because I think they understood that it was genuine. And so you just, that kind of grew into this space where I started feeling more comfortable speaking about my thoughts and different stuff because I'd gone to enough places and had enough experience. And it started resonating with people, that people wanted to hear what I thought.
Yes.
And that's a great feeling. There's been a great feeling of connecting with people and meeting people, because I didn't always have the perspective that I thought people were good and that I liked people in general. That's not really the life that I had and the experiences that I had growing up.
Yeah.
And then something shifted and I started valuing people. And then when I started putting my energy into relationships instead of outcome, which was another thing that I had to change in me, because just for the simple fact of coming from a sales background for almost 12 years or so, the focus was always the outcome.
Yeah.
And when I stopped focusing on the outcome and started focusing on the relationships with people, and it just opened up a whole nother world of amazing stuff to me about connecting with people and the value that everybody inherently has within them. And, how much each person out there has to give in some way. That's really cool. And it's been really cool for me to have a complete fundamental shift in perspective in terms of how I view the world, by doing all this. But I would have never had these changes in my life if I'd stayed in that job. I don't think I would even be here. I'd be dead. I really believe that. I was very much on track for that. And so what a cool, what a cool gift from the universe, or whatever you want to call it.
That's what I call it. Yeah. That's one of the things that we've been experiencing, is just meeting and talking to so many cool people on the show, and developing these relationships. Making friends with George Howard was pretty cool, and just all these different things. And so I'm listening to everything that you're saying, and trying to project that forward to our vision and our goals and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the advice, because we're you 9 years ago. Okay. So, yeah. And so, but when my first introduction to you, Mike, was the Sage Wall. Was that what set you off? Was that the thing that blew you up, or was it before that?
I mean, no. I had a couple big videos hit before that. I got, there's nothing like being prepared. Luck, there's what's that saying about luck being prepared for opportunity? That's what luck is. And I was, I just so happened to be prepared. I was working ahead. I had this goal of having videos every week done, to release videos every week at the time. I don't focus on that as much anymore. And I had videos scheduled every week for the next 4 or 5 months for release. So back in the day, I was looking at it like I had this window of.
That's admirable. That's 20 plus videos.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so somebody blew up the Georgia Guidestones. I don't know if you guys remember that.
That was, yes, Georgia Guidestones.
I went there literally 1 month before that happened.
And got the video done. It was ready for release. That happened, and I was like, holy crap, this is... And I instantly pushed that video live, and it blew up and got me this big bump. And I had all these other videos behind it ready for release. And so it was that was a really good opportunity. And then, I hit Rogan's radar several times with the video on Longview Caves, and then Sage Wall came along. So I was prepping to go to Russia to film Brunaya Shoria. And right when that happened, like I had everything set up. I had a guide over there. I had all this stuff, and everything with Ukraine popped off. And I had to cancel because Russia got hit with all these sanctions. So I wouldn't like I'm still looking to go to Russia, but there's this issue of like if you can't use any of your cards or anything over there, or an ATM or anything like that, then I would have to go over there with all the money that I would need for the entire trip and carry it on my person. And that was just not really a risk.
And a bulletproof vest.
That I'm willing to do that most people are not in my travels. But that just wasn't one of them because it's also very strict over there in terms of getting out of country and the time frame that you're allotted on your, your visa or whatever. And it was a lot of risk, and I just didn't have the resources to pull it off confidently, I felt. And so, I just was looking for other stuff. I just got on the internet. I was looking for other stuff to kind of maybe get into, and I found some stuff on Sage Wall. I believe I found it. The first place I found it was a website, History Shift. And I don't know if he's even putting out content anymore, but then I looked up the Sage Wall. It's on private property, and they did tours. And so I was like, dude, I got to get up here because anything that I did find, I didn't feel like was doing it just maybe not in depth enough, right? And I felt like I could get up there and put the drone up and give it some shots that never been seen. And that's what I did, and it just kind of took off. The implications there being, if you discovered a megalithic site in North America, that rewrites world history. And so there wasn't anything planned with Sage Wall. And then, the property owners, I developed a friendship with Chris, and they just kept inviting me back every year and have been sharing the information and the research that they've been doing up there with me to share with the public. It's been a wonderful relationship. And so it's really the only place that I've continuously gone back to, because that was never my plan to like be like the Sage Wall guy or the Peru guy or the Egypt guy, right? Like there's a lot of people that just focus on, specific regions or whatever, but I wanted to go everywhere. And so this is the only place that I've done where I've like consistently gone back to a place to
get back in RPG terms.
What's that?
To get back in RPG terms, just because you can fast travel or teleport to all these other places, you still have to pick a home city. That's your home megalithic site. It's got a little star on it on the map.
It kind of just became this. Yeah, it became that. And yeah, I'll be back there this month. And there's some new information that'll be coming out. And so I'll have some content coming out, I think, next month on Sage Wall again with new stuff, new findings to share with everybody, which will be really interesting.
Have you been like in touch with Mr. Rogan or?
No. I've met him. I've a few times with Graham at the comedy club here.
You're in Austin?
I'm in Austin, so that makes it, when Graham comes into town, we've connected and went to Rogan, his comedy thing, and actually got to show him stuff on the Sage Wall, which was fun, and that's some cool. People. It was a good time. But,
I've been to that. I've been to that club. It's a cool club.
It's a cool club. Yeah. It used to be a movie theater. And before that, it was something else. I don't know. It
was some kind of like home for like a cult or something, right? Like I've heard
way back in the day.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Some cult like lived there or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a documentary about it. I just haven't got around to looking into it.
Yeah. It's a fun spot. Had a good time, and Austin's been a great place to just happen to be for all of this. I grew up here. Austin's home. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Austin. Like it's home, but
Mhm.
obviously, you know, I got a lot of
It's
good
changing.
memories and a lot of bad memories here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, but Austin is definitely a place to be able to take advantage of a lot of things that are going on and just be close to a lot of things that are happening, you know, whether it's YouTube or entertainment or whatever. Yeah.
It does seem that way. And I like, gosh, I had the thought before, like watching your videos, going, man, this guy should be on Rogan. And then I saw not to Joe Rogan's not watching this, but you know, Jimmy brought Dan on there. Like, I feel like Jimmy can be like, come on, bring my boy Michael on. You're gonna love his shit. He
Well,
already knows who you are.
in all fairness, I was in Peru and Jimmy called me and was like, "Hey, man, you know, I'm being asked on to talk about this, and I'm taking Dan." And I was like, "Yeah, you should take Dan. I would be no help."
Hmm.
Like that whole interview and everything would have gone completely different. That was Dan's wheelhouse of
Sure.
area of expertise and knowledge and stuff. I wouldn't have been any help. But if you know, if they want to sit down and talk about like exploring the world and going to places and this and this and that, like, yeah, I'm the guy. But they did a great job, and Dan's a good
They
friend,
did.
and he crushed it, and deservedly got another shot back on there solo, and had his channel blow up, and I'm happy for him because. You know, he really grinds it out with the details, which is amazing. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
that guy. You know, I'm kind of more of like the existential like feeling of everything and like the experience and documenting that and sharing all that. And
Hmm.
you know, there's an aspect with me of overlap between ancient history and like adventure travel
Hmm.
that I really enjoy. Um, that is less involved in some of the details. Like if you ask me dates on some like ancient civilization, I'd be like,
Right.
oh, let me Google it real quick. I'll ask Rock.
Right.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
But someone's got to be at drone altitude getting that high quality footage that other people are going to maybe argue about.
I like that stuff. I like getting out, you know, way out. I like going places that nobody else has been before, places that people are unwilling to go, that are a little riskier and or harder to get to, doing things that, you know, I
What was the
really
riskiest drone flyover, drone pattern you had to do?
the riskiest drone, like in terms of like, should I be doing this or like
Is the drone
crashing?
going to
Yeah.
fly away? Is the drone going to? How many drones have you
Or
lost?
Oh
am I
yeah,
gonna get arrested?
Yeah.
yeah. I've crashed multiple drones. I've crashed drones. I crashed a drone at Sage Wall. I've crashed a drone in the Black Hole Drop at Belize. Actually, my buddy, he was flying it. He crashed it. I crashed a drone. I mean, yeah, I kind of look at that as like that just happens. That's a
Yeah.
part. That's an expense. And drones, it's a piece of equipment. But yeah, I mean, it sucks to see $1,000 to $1,500 piece of equipment take a nosedive into a rock, right? Yeah, for sure that sucks. So insurance on those is a really good thing to have. You know, through DJI, I've
What
used that.
about the opposite end of that question? Like,
Now,
maybe without getting yourself into trouble by saying it, like, have you, you know, what about a drone operation that was maybe, you know, maybe could have got you arrested or you weren't supposed to do?
okay, yeah, without getting myself into trouble, there are plenty of times where okay, here because we worked it out. I'll give you this one. I took a
Okay.
drone down to because we ended up working it all out and it was fine and everything's legit now, but it wasn't when I started. So we were filming and I actually wasn't filming, but I was authorizing it, right? So we were down in Bolivia, and we were at Tiwanaku and Pumapunku,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this is like at the height of COVID.
Hmm.
You know, I traveled the entire time through COVID, and so I'd get to these
Wow.
sites, there'd be nobody anywhere, and so I'd be getting these spectacular shots of ancient sites with no people in them, and so we got the drone up, and I said I'm going to go over here because they had like this elders meeting, and they were doing all this stuff out in the town, like it's not a square, but they had this like there's this little area where there's like a museum and stuff, and those are offices where they manage all the like Tiwanaku.
The town is right there, correct? It's like,
yeah, I mean it's like right between Tiwanaku and Pumapunku.
Okay,
I mean it's
got
like blocks away from each other.
Wow.
And so I was like, hey, y'all put the drone up, fly it over the site, but take it up really high, right? Because we're also up really high in altitude, and so you can hear stuff
Sure.
more, right? And I said, just keep it really high. And so I went over and I was talking to the lady because I was going to try to see if they would let us into the museum to look around for a few minutes. And I'm talking to her. We're sitting on a wall. We sit down to talk. And I hear, I hear the drone, and I'm like, what are they doing? And I'm like, I can't look. And it's getting louder and it's getting louder. And she starts looking. And I'm like, dude, what are they doing? And it's getting louder. And then it comes straight down the middle of the road, the main strip, like 15, 20 feet off the ground, right past us. And she's like, and then she just is watching it go by with her hand up, like, and then she looks at me and she's like, is that you? And I'm like, I can't say no. We're the only non-locals in the entire town, right? So we get busted. 2 guys went over and busted my friends who had driven off into a field. And so we get like detained or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, we reach an agreement where we'll let them copy all the footage and have it for their website, whatever they want.
Hey.
And if they'll let us also film Pumapunku, and they let us film. And so they went over and opened up. It was locked up and closed. And they went over there and let us in. And I got some amazing footage that you can watch on Ancient Aliens right now. So the footage.
I've probably seen it. I don't know if I couldn't tell you which one, but I've probably definitely seen it.
So yeah, the footage that they're playing on the current season and last couple seasons of Ancient Aliens is footage from that.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna go back and watch those seasons again just to be like, okay.
Yeah, all that drone footage is from that. And look, there's times where it how do I say this? It's better to ask forgiveness than permission because but a lot of the places they just want money.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes into this monetization of ancient history.
It brings us to the subject of your last couple of videos. Let's get into that.
Yeah, and that's been an unfortunate kind of. That's been my look behind the curtain for this. It's not something that I was looking to do. It's not like I was looking to expose some nefarious thing going on in archaeology or ancient history or sites around the world. It's just at a certain point, after having visited literally hundreds and hundreds of sites around the world, there's a common thing that you start seeing. And that's that all these sites are rebuilt. They're not, and when I say rebuilt, I don't mean like they're accurately rebuilding these sites to the best approximation of what they used to be. I mean, I'm talking about like concrete, and being used for these walls aren't even walls; they're just concrete with some stones stuck in them, and like, and taking ancient blocks and stones and cutting them with modern stone saws and equipment, and then stacking them into walls. None of them in places where they fit before, or doing things like they're doing now in Egypt, like encasing the Sphinx entirely in modern limestone blocks. Or at Göbekli Tepe, which, I recently covered, which has been causing so much controversy, building roofing systems directly into the heart of the site. All for the sake of building a platform and a roof for tourism. These are things that are going on that everywhere. And so if any site is, monetized, is making money, is charging entrance fees and things like that, there's reconstruction stuff going on there, and that, you know, a lot of times people don't even realize you're going to places and you're looking at stuff that you think, you know, I'm watching people have emotional reactions to things that they think are ancient works of art, and I know that they're a concrete plaster reconstruction.
Right.
I don't think people
That's
understand that.
unfortunate.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize, like, you know, there's a process happening of discovery of a site, excavation, and then it being taken over in archaeology, really in all practical effect, not having anything to do with it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just being kind of like a, you know, having some archaeologist on site attached to the site to lend it credibility. But what really happens is these sites get sold off to management companies that specialize in making these sites profitable for tourism, and they sign contracts with the government for management of these sites, and then they make investments into the site to build it up for tourism, and in effect all archaeology stops. And, you know, that's what's going on. And there's a reason why the world average for excavation around the world at sites is around 20%. But I don't even think it, you know, in my personal opinion, I think it's much less than that. But if you look it up, the average estimated excavation that happens per site worldwide is around 20%. Well, that's all that's really needed for them. You know, you excavate the largest, most fantastical part of these sites, and then you don't do anything else. Basically, all archaeological work stops of any practical effect.
Yep.
And the site just becomes a cash cow. You know, a site like Göbekli Tepe was pulling in, you know, tens of thousands of visitors per year, under 100,000 per year, just a handful of years ago. You know, those numbers are now over 500,000 visitors per year.
Wow.
And that's expected to grow and grow. And they've built that roofing system directly into the site. I mean, the steel beams for that roofing system pierce directly through the heart of the site.
One thing that got me was when you showed Karahan Tepe, because it showed the holes being put in there. Yes. And that's what really bummed me out, because I was thinking to myself, okay, I can see them doing it here one time to make money, but there's dozens of other sites in the area that they can actually do. Then the money can go to the real archaeology at the other sites. But no, that's not what's happening. And that really bummed me out.
You bring up a great point, because it is people have the right to go visit these sites, and we should encourage that. If you've got the ways and means to afford to go, you know, take a trip there, I would love to myself. But on the other hand, the sheer profiteering and the way they're running it like a busyness is for the petro technology people. They want you to get in your car and burn gasoline going to the airport, get in an airplane, burn jet fuel going over there, and eat food that's been delivered on corporate trucks in the gift shop. And that's all that is. Come on, you can do that. I can go to the convenience store and do that.
Yeah, this is it's big business. So this is called heritage tourism, and the global market for heritage tourism is over $500 billion, over $500 billion a year currently. By 2030, in the next 5 years, that's projected to go almost hit $800 billion a year worldwide. So in 10 years, or probably less, it'll be $1 trillion a year industry. And so for anybody thinking that, you know, that there's a whole system in place, and there used to be an overlap between archaeology and tourism, and I don't think that exists anymore. I think that it's all about tourism and money now, and that's the priority. And let me make this clear, because I've documented it and it's in my video, is that these aren't professionals, experts, archaeologists, or anybody with some kind of background in history and understanding these sites who rebuild these sites. These are day laborers that come in and cut up the stones and move them and do the construction to rebuild these sites. So when you know, these sites that are reconstructed, and all of them are reconstructed, they're not being reconstructed by professionals. These are day laborers who are getting paid whatever the base minimum wage is there in that country, which I imagine in most of these places is very minimal. And this is I've documented it. It's in my video. So it's not, you know, this is what I've seen around the world at, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of sites around the world. They are not. I have yet to see an active archaeological team working at any site that I've ever been to. I have never once, and I've been to hundreds of sites around the world. I have never once seen an archaeological team at work, but I have seen on countless occasions day laborers reconstructing sites, cutting up ancient stones and blocks and stacking them into walls and pouring concrete on sites, building restaurants and resorts and stuff on site as well. I have seen that more times than I can count, and I've documented it, and I've shared all this in my most recent video. You know, that video was the product of almost 10 years of filming. And you know,
I meant to ask you, how many total sites did that encompass? There was at least 1 or 2 dozen sites.
Yeah, I tried to go through, and here's the thing. A lot of the stuff these are the things that I was able to pull out of traveling for so long, and that I just caught in happenstance that I had to go through years of footage to look for. Because I wasn't looking for this.
Makes sense.
You know, if I had been looking for this for the last 10 years, and that had been a focus, that video would be 6 hours long of examples of stuff like this. But I just didn't know, you know, it took me years to kind of understand the process of what's happening here and then start paying attention to it. And unfortunately, now I can't stop seeing it when I'm traveling to these sites around the world. You know, these, you know, and some of the time these pieces are recreated. They're recreated with plaster or concrete.
The pictures of Teotihuacan killed me, man.
What's that?
The plaster. Sorry to interrupt, but the Teotihuacan pictures, like I was like, what? I didn't know that.
The entirety of Teotihuacan is a giant pile of concrete.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
The entire pyramid is concrete. And that's, you know, Chaco Canyon, it's all concrete. It's all put together with concrete. You know, you go to places like Hattusa in the Lion's Gate, the entire, that structure, there's a lion's head on the left side and a really damaged one on the right side. The really nice looking one on the left, it's all concrete. Egypt, I couldn't tell you how many sites in Egypt are recreated with concrete. You walk through all the pillars there at Luxor, it's all concrete. These are massive, massive pillars with pieces of old remains and stuff in it, but it's all concrete. And it's amazing. It looks amazing if you don't know exactly what you're looking at. And they make billions of dollars. Egypt, I think just a few years ago, their intake and their tourism intake off of visiting these ancient sites was something like $13 billion. And that was in if I remember correctly, that was 21. So during COVID, that was a slow year. So, you know, this is, it's disappointing. You know, and a lot of the pushback, it shows you how much of a, it really shows you now how that this is an entire system, an operating system now. Because I can't think of any other reason why there would be pushback from the archaeological community. And I say archaeological community, and perhaps I should scale that back, because it's just these vocal mouthpieces that have taken up this grind against people like Graham and Jimmy, and now I find myself being brought into it. You know, and our names keep coming out of their mouth as if we're some bad guys, when what we're trying to do is protect and make known what's going on here. But the only reason that I could think that anybody would stand on the other side of exposing all this is because they are a part of the system and they're benefiting from it.
Yeah,
and, you know, I don't like saying the guy's name, but the guy who's put himself front and center is the one who did the debate with Graham a year ago, and he continues to take the position on the opposite side of whatever's being said by any of us, regardless of what we show, to the point where it's devolved into never addressing the actual issues that we're raising, but just going straight into personal attacks.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Calling, straw manning, ad hominem, those are the tools of the trade.
Also credentialing, look at my credentials, you know.
Taking credentialism and then speaking outside their...
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but when I clearly see that there's a system that's so corrupt that all of this is happening, I don't care about your credentials anymore. They mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
Your credentials, you sold them.
Yep.
You sold it. You sold out. I don't care.
Yeah, I feel the same way when it comes to the credentials. If you're using them, you know, as a shield to say, I own this information, and you're not allowed to talk about it. Mike, I don't know if he coined I don't know if he coined the term last night in an interview, but maybe, but he called it the reverse grift, right? It's these people who are making money and making a YouTube following, Milo Rossi's one that comes to mind, where they're grifting. They're calling people grifters by grifting.
Yeah, look, what the guy, the biggest tell is that everything that these guys accuse others of is what they're doing.
Yes.
So I think one of the favorite ones that I've seen is trying to say stuff like Jimmy and even myself and different people are just doing things for views. And it's like, that's all you've been focused on for the last year since you got a debate with Graham on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
All you've been focused on is getting views, stirring up drama, creating controversy, and
going on
podcasts and getting views out there for your YouTube channel. So, the difference between us is that we don't make any kind of, that's what we do. I'm a YouTuber. Yep. Jimmy's a YouTuber. This is like what we do, is we document stuff and share it with people. But you're trying to hide behind this, as if you're holier than thou because you have a degree, and while you're still doing the same things, chasing views or whatever, trying to like get content that's like out there or whatever. And so it's this double standard. And what I find usually is I've yet to really respond to any kind of the pushback online, because it's just like this spiral of negativity that
don't worry, Dan will pick it up for you. He's like
Dan
Dan
and these guys and Sam, and they're so great at punching back, and they actually enjoy it. I don't really enjoy it.
No,
I wouldn't.
And me and Dave think overall we need to be trying to make more connections and saying, hey, bona fide academics are making great discoveries, and they should also be willing to listen to people who don't really have the same credentials as they are, and try to bring all that together.
Yeah, the cool thing that's starting to happen is that there are archaeologists that are starting to speak out. And they're saying that like, hey, a lot of us behind the scenes, when we're together talking about stuff, we bitch about this exact stuff. We know it's not right. But if you come out and say it, if you're not in the position to be independently okay from the profession, you risk never getting a job, never working a site, never overseeing a site, never getting a tenured position at a university. You have to toe the line. And if you step out of line, you're not going to work. This is a whole industry of people who are protecting their positions And that's sad, because what we're showing, myself, Jimmy, Graham, and different people, what we're showing is irrefutable. It's like literally video evidence of some of this stuff going on. Big reveal is when it's shown that there's an entire underbelly black market system that's worldwide that sells off important pieces to private collectors, and then and then when that evidence comes out,
Antiquities.
yeah, and it's going to eventually.
Do you know anybody who's like working on that particular angle?
I do, yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious because you sounded like you were like pretty sure that that's coming out.
I'm very sure.
We need to stay undercover. We're
Good.
going to keep them undercover, but
Yeah.
we're eager to hear about any developments when they do take place.
Yeah, and you know, it's not like this isn't known.
Oh, obviously it's been going on for 150 years, or more, so there are people out there with shit from Greece and Rome and Egypt and stuff that no one even knows exist. So
it's big business, and pieces disappear all the time. They get logged into a book, and then they're in a museum, but they're not on display. Oh, it's back there in the back, but we never see it again. It's not back there in the back. It's somebody's private atrium.
Yeah,
your home.
Yeah,
and what we get is a concrete or plaster recreation on site.
That's so frustrating. What about Chichen Itza? Concrete or what?
Concrete.
Ah, for fuck's
All
sake.
concrete.
It looks perfect.
Yeah, it does look perfect. Have you seen the old pictures? It wasn't found that way.
Yeah, I have, but you never see. I always forget because you never see them. You're overwhelmed with what it looks like now.
So I gave you guys a bunch of clips and different stuff that show some of this stuff. But in Mexico, what they do is they pour concrete and they put stones in there, and then you have these little dotted marks in between the stones and stuff in the concrete, and that's like this. That's where they show that it's a recreation and that they've reworked that. So at least in Mexico, you can see that.
Sure.
They've redone that because they don't do that everywhere. But in Mexico, they do. So when you go to these sites, you can see these little jagged, spots. Not jagged, but they're little spots in between within the concrete showing that's a recreation. And that's just the style that they do in terms of reconstructing the day laborers when they're doing this and pouring the concrete.
Yeah, that video, I mean this in a good way, but it really bummed me out. But I think it's important work because, somebody like me who's been to a handful of these sites, but not hundreds of them, and it's not really looking for that, and just has seen all the documentaries and all the shows and everything like that. I want to know. It's not that it bums me out, but I want to know, and I want to know because I think everyone should know, because then it can, once it gets. I mean, Jimmy literally got them to remove the dang trees, right? So the more attention that comes to this stuff, the more public pushback to save our heritage, and really get real answers done versus turning everything to you made a very good analogy of an amusement park, and I'm a big fan of our national park system. I think it's one of the greatest things the United States has ever done, and it's a fucking amusement circus now too, excuse my language, but I don't know if you've been to some of these big national parks, but it's like you go to Zion, it's a dang amusement park.
Yeah, I can't. There's a lot of places I've been I can't go anymore because they're so crowded. It's not enjoyable.
No.
And I'm not, there's tourism isn't, I even said that in my videos, tourism isn't inherently bad. I understand why people want to go see all these things, right? And then it does get frustrating if you start capping entrance to places where you have to book, you have to book to your time to a national spot like 6 months in advance. It's kind of crazy. But, that's what happens when you develop a site to make it accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like Zion, when you get up to those points and stuff, you know, not everybody would be doing that if you didn't build in like steps and
Sure.
railing. You know, in some of these places, they're designed for mass, you know, the most amount of people, right?
Yeah,
You know,
there's
you have
bus
parking
systems
lot,
and stuff, and
yeah, you have parking lot systems that come up as close as possible that'll hold 20 buses, tour buses, and they're all slotted for times. And so, you know, you get to these, I mean, I can't tell you how many places I've got where I'm like on camera going like, oh man, all the tourist buses just pulled up. Let's get up here and get ahead. We'll hit some of this other stuff on the way out, but we want to get to the main site, right?
mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm,
5 tour buses just showed up, which means the whole site's about to get flooded with like 300 people.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, or
So it's
more
like,
sometimes.
oh yeah, and there's already people on site. So it's like, it can be crazy. But that's what these sites they're developed for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Ease of access, people in and out. It's a numbers game. Every person that comes in is worth X. Divide that, you know, times that by the amount per day on average, times 7, you know, times 4 or whatever, times 12. That's our yearly intake. And that's what this site makes, right? Do we
Mm-hmm.
want to develop it more and increase? What's our potential for increasing? Oh, okay. Like at Göbekli Tepe, let's build a resort at the front of the property, because that's what they're doing. They're building a
What?
massive resort.
It's so hilarious. That so reminds me of the movie Idiocracy, though, where it's like, what's the first thing you want to do in front of an extremely important historical site that's not even been completely explored? Let's put a big old swimming pool in front of it. That's a great idea.
That's what they're doing. And that's going to be home base for all the Tepe sites out there, like Karahan Tepe, Göbekli Tepe. So everybody will travel down to Sanliurfa, and they won't have to stay in Sanliurfa. They'll stay at the resort,
Yeah.
and then there'll be buses that take them to all the different sites that they're developing.
Okay, next year when we do a live stream broadcast from the swimming pool area at the resort of Göbekli Tepe, we'll have to backtrack a couple of these words, but maybe not all of them.
It'll probably be done by then. Yeah, it's
That's
a
wild.
whole massive resort hotel thing they're building there.
So I can see, like, you know, wanting to make money and wanting to sell access to these sites. I think the most concerning thing is that when they start, what you were showing in your recent video and the one with Jimmy, is when they're building right on top of the dang site, right? And they're digging into it. And then what you pointed out, which is that we're not talking about archaeologists with brushes and stuff spending 15 years doing that. We're talking about, you know, like trying to get in there and construction. Yeah. And that is the part that I think is the most concerning. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody sent me a clip after Jimmy and Dan went on Piers Morgan with Flint and Milo.
That was wild, huh?
That was a funny
It was
moment.
wild, and it was relatively
Calm.
yeah.
Mhm.
But Flint and Milo did a live stream right after where they proceeded to just talk shit for like several hours.
For sure.
Somebody sent me a clip of them just basically laughing off Jimmy's point about the beams piercing the heart of the site, saying they know what they were doing. You think that they didn't know what they were. It's like, tell me you've never worked a day of hard labor in your life without telling me you've never worked a day of hard labor in your life, right? Because you didn't. There aren't just specialists down there guiding these steel beams into holes that some archaeologist brushed out, right? Like, this is a major construction project. So we're talking about cranes. We're talking about dozens and dozens of workers walking all over the middle of that site to get
my
guide
gosh.
these holes in, to dig the holes, to guide the poles in, to secure them, and put them in place, to put the canopy and the roofing system over it. You know, none of that was done by anybody with any expertise in in archaeology or preserving the site. That's not the intent here.
Mm-hmm.
The entire purpose of building that system was to put that walkway in and have it be this tourist destination and site.
Yep.
There's no other reason behind it.
Well, if they were trying to preserve the site, they would have spent 50 years doing it. That's how long real archaeology takes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think, I think they're done. I can't see any other major discoveries being made at Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've said as much.
It's
that
only
they-
about 10%, right? Or how much percent
5.
is that? Oh, geez.
And
How much-
they've said that they're putting off major excavations for 150 years, something like that.
That's some
bizarre.
JFK file bullshit. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
right.
Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, we'll release the information when it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it's like. And yeah, I don't expect any other major discoveries or revelations to come out of Göbekli Tepe in the future.
Possibly the most important site in human history.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. Unless what you guys do, it catches on and keeps catching on, and what more people start pushing, and then maybe, I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. I mean, do you have like hope, or do you have a vision of what this could look like in a positive way in the future?
I'll be honest with you. Like I said, none of this really, my goal when I started doing this wasn't this. It was to travel to sites, document them, and share them with people, and hopefully inspire people to go do their own thing, to see their own thing, to ask their own questions, to be a part of stuff, get involved with the community, like of people with shared interests around all this. I was sharing my passion and my joy. And so this really came from an interview that I did, I think back in December with Matt Beal.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Belt.
Yeah, that's cool.
And on that interview, it just came up, the topic of Chichen Itza. And I think I just casually offhanded said, oh, well, that's not real. That's all a reconstruction. And I was ready to move on. It just came out.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, wait a minute, wait, back up. What do you mean? And he asked me to go into that further. And I had never thought of it before.
Mm-hmm.
Not that way. And so I said, well, yeah, it's all concrete. None of that is original. It's all concrete. And a lot of these structures and faces, they're recreations. They're concrete or plaster. And he's like, what? And we really started digging into that. And that really hit a switch in my head that, I started realizing, it was the first time that I really realized like how much I'd seen around the world about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I traveled to Göbekli Tepe, it was just like the light bulb went off. I was already going over to Göbekli Tepe to scout ahead for a tour that I was going to be doing in November. I've since had to cancel that tour because archaeologists have been online tagging Turkey and the Ministry of Culture over there, saying that we broke the law when we didn't, and all this stuff, and trying to defame us online.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I had to make a decision about doing that tour and showing up and having the backlash from this being exposed, somehow affecting the tour and all these people being out of money. And so I had to cancel the tour, unfortunately. And so that's how this kicked off. And then I said, I'm sitting on a mountain of evidence of this. I've traveled more than I've made videos, so I'm sitting on so much footage. And so I just started going through everything, and I think I spent a couple months going through all the footage and crafting that video. And I hope that it's done well. It's at 70,000 views. That's fine. But I'm hoping that at some point it kind of really takes off, because I do feel like this is something that people need to be aware of.
It needs the Rogan bump. It needs the Rogan bump. I think this is the topic that gets you on Rogan.
You would
I
think,
like how
whether that gets me anywhere, you would think that this topic would be more, it'd catch at some point, and maybe it will. But it's also very depressing. I remember Matt in our interview saying might be one of my most depressing video interviews I've ever done. And I was like, yeah, I
Learning
know.
how fake some things are that
Because it's
how the Easter Bunny or a tooth fairy.
yeah, it's revelatory in terms of peeling back the veil of what's really going on in modern heritage tourism and archaeology. And like I said, I wasn't looking to do this. It was the byproduct of having visited and documented so many sites around the world. I don't know who else would have done it.
I like how you pointed out that you were getting footage on your early trips without even realizing it. And in this exercise to make the new video, you're going back pulling old footage. There it is right there. I didn't even know what I was looking at that time.
I didn't know what I was looking at. Yeah. I didn't know what I was looking at for a long time. Even when things were being said to me, I documented at Caracol. There's some major pieces at Caracol in Belize that and they look original. They're these intricately carved depictions, massive pieces, and they're not real.
Yeah.
They're all plaster. And they're on site in positions where they look like they're real, but they're not. It's all plaster. And there was a guide there talking to me. I was asking him questions because I heard him say something. And I've included that video in the file that I sent you, but he, he's telling me like, yeah, none of these are real. This is all plaster. And I remember that and going back, and these are pieces of footage from years ago that I was going back and grabbing to include in that video that I made. So
I think it stands to reason that one day future archaeologists, thousands of years from now, will be excavating our civilization. And we already differentiate between what appears to be perhaps different technological layers of stonework in the past. I think what we need to bring this topic to light is a catchy name like Plaster Pacha stonework to go along with the Hanan Pacha and this family of Pachas. Because one day some guy's going to dig this up and be like, man, there's this incredible stonework underneath and some plaster of Paris layered on top.
Plaster Pichu.
I mean, they're doing it at Machu Picchu.
What about Nan Madol? Have you been to Nan Madol?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm just curious because that one seems like, how would you it's like a floating city,
Yeah. There's still a few places out there like that I have yet to go visit. And several countries that it's kind of surprising I haven't visited, like India and Greece.
So Praveen Mohan's going to be at Cosmic Summit, and he's the dang India guy to talk to.
He does such good work. I've always been such a huge fan of his. I used to just binge watch his videos.
Same. Yeah. Super nice guy. Super nice guy.
So I hope I get to meet him there at
you will.
Cosmic Summit. Yeah.
Who else are you looking forward to seeing or meeting at Cosmic Summit? Dave and I are stoked. We're excited to go.
Yeah, it'd be cool to shake y'all's hand.
Yeah.
I think I'll be on Sunday.
Oh, you're actually speaking?
Yeah, I'll be speaking on Sunday at like noon or something, or 11.
Awesome.
There.
Nice.
So it should be a lot of fun. I haven't been to one yet, so really looking forward to it. I haven't even met George in person yet, so that'll be fun.
This year he's putting it on much bigger and badder. It sounds like he's got some some company releasing
Atlantica?
Atlantica, which is this documentary about this team who is pretty sure they've discovered Atlantis. Mark Young of the Comet Research Group was on our show, and he told us that he saw it, and it's pretty compelling evidence. They're going to have 60. Matt Beal is bringing 60 some odd of his vases to it to get your hands on if possible. And the list of content creators that he's bringing, somehow Mike and I get to be featured guests there as well, which is pretty cool. And it's just, he's put together like a really awesome. We're really excited that you're going. I remember early on, I don't know if you remember this, but on X, I was like putting out Wandering Wolf needs to come to Cosmic Summit. And I don't know if that's how you got invited, but I like to think it is. And I tagged George in it and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
I feel really happy to be included, and it sounds like a good time. I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun connecting with other creators and people that are out there sharing the same passion. You know, that's a lot of fun.
It's a little more intimate, Mike. It's not like a giant hippie fest with thousands of people. I think there'll be 1,000 or less. You know what I mean? And
There was only a few hundred. Yeah.
Yeah, it's last time was only a few hundred, which is what I liked about it so much last year was that you really have access to everyone. You know, like you're walking down the hallway. There's Ben Van Kerkwick. You sit down.
Yeah.
There's Randall Carlson over there, and you know, that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm 1,000. I don't remember. Yeah.
So you mentioned Nam Madal. So you've been literally almost everywhere. I managed to snag one that you haven't been to.
Yeah.
Is there any like burning ones, top 2, top 3 that like you haven't been to but you got to go? Like India or anywhere, not just India specifically.
India's been at the top of my list. I've tried to go to India 3 different times, and something's happened. Like some kind of personal thing has come up, and I've had to cancel the trip, or something, kind of weird has happened where I've had to cancel the trip, and that's happened like 3 different times trying to go to India. And I think eventually, what I kind of realized was like, I'm waiting till I can spend a month or more traveling through India.
Yeah.
I don't think India is like a 1 week or 2 week trip. I really want to spend over a month over there. And then, oh man, other than that, I need to get through Greece. Yeah, Nam Madal would be cool. There's, I don't know. Yeah. Those are the ones that really stick out.
Yeah, India's there's just so much shit there that it's hard to even decide which one you'd go to. From my conversation with Praveen, he basically said, unless you know somebody and you're willing to spend a month or 2, just pick one and just go there, pick one site and go. Otherwise you're not, it's going to be too overwhelming, is with how he described it to me. So I recommend making friends with Praveen here in June and seeing if you guys can't collaborate or something on something like that. And he'll take you out all the great places, but like the Kailasa temple and shit, it looks like it was literally laser printed from above and stuff like that. I mean,
that's one of the top #1 places in the world that I want to see. For sure. And I'm still trying to get over to Russia. There's Gornaya Shore and then Azerbaijan, which most people aren't familiar with. And then some stuff going on over there. The pillars that are out in the middle of the field, I can't remember what those are called off the top of my head. They're just massive rock pillars. But I'd love to get over. I'd love to connect. But Praveen is doing such good work, and he has been for such a long time. The guy's a genius, and love his work. So I hope I get to meet him at Cosmic Summit and shake his hand. That'd be really cool.
You definitely will. Mike and I were walking into the disco party at the very first night, and Mike's like, "That's Praveen Mohan." And I was like, "What?" And then I was like, Praveen." I didn't. It caught me off guard, so I fanboyed a little bit because I've watched hundreds of hours of his shit as well.
Yeah.
But very nice guy, very approachable, I think you need connections to do India right the way you'd want to do it, I would think.
Yeah, I agree, and it does get. India seems like one of those places that'd be very overwhelming very quick. I've been to places where, Malta is a good example. Malta isn't anywhere near as big as India, obviously, but there's so many sites, and I was over there for several weeks, that you can get a little bit fatigued, like site fatigue. So it's like when you can walk through 3 or 4 sites a day, no problem, because there's so many and they're all so close to each other. After doing that for like a week and a half, you're kind of burnt, right? So it's like, you have to, work in some rest so that you're not just like, oh, cool, whatever, here, film this, because that kind of sets in after a while when you're doing the same thing over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And so there does need to be kind of like a break or whatever. And sometimes that needs to be several days of just turning your brain off when you're, filming that much or visiting that many sites. And a place like India seems like a place where that could happen. So it's like, work for a week and then take several days off and just try to rest and relax and go at it again. Split the country up into sections, possibly, that you can kind of tackle and work on, because that's a big country and there's so many sites.
Yeah, I wonder if they had the same. I wonder if you'll notice the same problem there, or not. I wouldn't know. Like the same, heritage tourism issue.
Yeah, I couldn't speak to that, but India seems less. It's not quite as focused on that type of tourism, at least in comparison to other places in the world. I think India is just a harder one to tackle for people in terms of traveling to. There's a lot of logistical issues that make it tough. I've looked at it several times, so it's not as inviting or friendly in terms of being able to get around and do stuff as something like, going to Italy or even Cambodia.
Before we start wrapping it down, I wanted to ask about the Cafre project, just briefly. Those guys are going to be at Cosmic Summit. What's your take on the hullabaloo here?
I don't know. I'm probably not the guy to ask about that. I don't think I have anything kind of worthwhile to share on that. A lot of it for me is kind of wait and see. And I haven't even dug into, when all this came out, I think I was traveling through Turkey and I've been pretty busy since then. So I'm familiar with the claims and what's going on there. But that's about as far as it goes. I couldn't speak to like the technology or what they're using or the validity of the technology that they're using to get these results. So I'm kind of, from my position, I'm kind of like a wait and see type of thing. And so it'd be obviously incredible if this can be validated in terms of there being the structure underneath the Giza Plateau like that, like they're showing. I don't know what that would mean. I can't understand how something like that huge could even exist, but that would be incredible, obviously.
It would change everything.
Change everything, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so according to George, they're presenting brand new findings at Cosmic Summit for the first time. That could mean a lot of things. That could mean something small. That could mean something huge. I really don't know. I did want to say, well, before we're gonna wrap here in a second, because I know it's late for us, and I know you've been sick, and so we really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
But something that cracked me up, man, in the video with you and Jimmy was you're sitting there filming and you're like, and Jimmy, and then Jimmy pops in, who's Jimmy in his disguise? And I just swear I had a nice chuckle about that. And so it's not, I do like how you guys collaborate there. And it was like an episode of Carmen Sandiego or something, man. Jimmy's like got his hat on and his glasses and stuff like that. It's cracking me up.
Yeah, I think he had concerns about being identified at the site, and I think they were valid concerns.
For sure.
And so, these other guys that continually shit on Jimmy on the other side, they can dismiss that if they want, but I think it was valid. This is, I mean, at the very least, they could have just denied us access to the site.
Yeah.
If they felt like it. But yeah, Jimmy and I have a great rapport. I think we're supposed to be getting footage from the conference in Sedona with Graham
Yep.
that we'll be able to release on both of our channels from our time on stage together.
Heck
And
yeah.
I think people will really enjoy that because we had a lot of fun up there, and there was some great moments between Graham, Jimmy, and I. And so hopefully we'll get that sooner rather than later, and we can release that on the channel so people can kind of enjoy that banter that you're talking about
Yes.
there as well, because it is a lot of fun, and we do get along really well like that.
That's footage that Dave and I will both be looking forward to when you are able to post that. And I think that's a great wrap up for the show. You brought us through your whole journey, and we appreciate that. And we're looking forward to your book as well. And in fact, we'd be glad to feature that book on our show. But from that all the way to the stage in Sedona and everywhere in between, and now we want to be a part of that journey too. We're along the road with you. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And it's been an absolute blast sitting down and talking shop with you guys. This is really cool, and I can't wait to meet you both in person and shake your hand at Cosmic Summit. Be a lot of fun.
I'm super grateful too for having you, man. And I'll hand sanitize before I shake your hand because I don't want to get you sick.